So today we had the Texas Census Institute come down to the Rio Grande Valley and talk to community leaders and people involved here in the Valley about the importance of the census and what we can start working on today to make sure the Valley is not undercounted as we have historically been.
But the next census is 2030. That's quite a few years away. Why start so early?
You're right, it is. It's in 2030. It is a long time away when we think about it, but the census is such a huge project. I mean, we're talking about counting every single person, no matter the age, all across the Rio Grande Valley. And that is going to take a lot of time and effort to make sure that we get that information out there. We get the right information out there, and we're able to answer everyone's questions and make sure they're confident in putting down their information and submitting it for the census.
Morgan, how bad was the undercount in the Rio Grande Valley in 2020?
It was quite significant. We're talking about over 20,000 children were undercounted in Dog County. Over 15,000 children were undercounted in Cameron County. And we're talking about over 500,000 people were undercounted across the state of Texas. And that has a huge impact on the amount of federal dollars and the grants that we receive here in Texas across education, across healthcare, and across just so many different areas, and including food and housing.
So we're feeling the impact of that today in less funding coming to our region than should be coming.
Absolutely. And you see it every day right now with our food bank, the Rio Grande Valley Food Bank, with Loaves and Fishes. They don't have enough supplies. They don't have enough funding to really meet the needs that we have here in the Valley. We're also seeing it with our housing authorities. You know, in Brownsville, we have a wait list of over 2,000 families, and yet we have 600 and soon to be maybe 800 homes available. That's because we're not meeting those census numbers to get those bigger grants so that we can build additional affordable housing. That has a huge impact on us. And when we get rain, when we have floods, we have those drainage issues, it's a lot of that because we don't have the funding to be able to do the studies, to do the engineering, to work with the Army Corps of Engineers to get those projects funded by the federal government. And that's because our census numbers are so low. If they know that those dollars will impact a larger population, we will become more of a priority. And we've seen that with our NPO when it comes to roads and TxDOT. Now we just need to take that same response to the federal government and make sure we know that every single person is counted. Because when they're not, we can lose up to $3,000 to $5,000 per person a year.
I know it's early days. This was the first such meeting of the group. But was there anything you heard today that gave you encouragement? Any new ideas that floated to the top today that you feel could be embraced, taken on board for the next census to make sure we don't have the same sort of size undercount for next time?
Absolutely. One of those, kind of shining moments that we heard about today, one of those great examples was in the last census, the Boys and Girls Club. We have multiple locations here in the Valley, and how they got their kids to participate and how the kids were so excited about the census. And they took that home and talked to their parents, and their excitement spread to their parents, their grandparents, and their relatives. And we had more people do that because of the kids' involvement, because we made sure that our students understood how important the census is to them and to their families, that they took that information home and it really started to help. So I think really leaning into that, making sure not just the adults know what the census is and how it's going to affect them, but also our kids and our schools and our after-school programs at Head Start, making sure we're disseminating the importance of the census and how it affects our community across all age groups.
And you made the point that to involve the churches, to involve all the church groups that could play a part. That's an important section of our community.
Absolutely. We've seen Sister Norma, we've seen Catholic Charities, we've seen the Valley interfaith groups really reach out to so many at-risk communities, and they've been there for them, whether it's because we have droughts, whether it's because of COVID, or we are in a recession. They're always there supporting those communities, and they've become a trusted person in that area. They have such a big impact there that if we can get them to also join in and help explain the importance of the census, we can get even more responses. But that's why we need to start so early, because we're talking about so many different groups across the Valley.
So was there any agreement on what the next steps should be today?
Absolutely. The next steps are going to be finding community leaders, not just in Hidalgo, Cameron County, but in Willacy and in Starr, that are willing to come together and work as a group to really put together a unified step process. What are the next steps? Okay, where can we go? How do we address this? And what communication can we get out to those communities? And how Hidalgo can help Starr and Cameron can help Willacy and vice versa, making sure that we're sharing those resources and not just isolating them.
And do you want to give a shout out to this statewide group for coming down here and saying, we want to help, we've got some resources and some best practices we can share with you?
Absolutely. That's Texas Census Institute. They're helping us with resources. They really put together a timeline and a plan for us to follow. They're leading this across the entire state in so many different areas. And what they're also doing is they're bringing best practices from other states that they've seen work that we can implement. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just making sure that we're getting the right information out to everyone as soon as possible. So when the census does come, we're all prepared.
Those are all the questions I had, Morgan. Is there anything I've missed? Anything else you'd like to add?
No, just if you want to get involved, please reach out to your county, reach out to your city, look up the Texas Census Institute online, and find ways to get involved. When you start hearing about the census in the news, reach out and make sure that you talk to your friends and your family members about it and ask questions. Because when we're informed about what's going on around us, that's how we can make the biggest impact. And I would say one last thing, we are in the middle of early voting, so please go out and vote.
Morgan, thank you so much for today's interview. We've learned a lot, as we always do when we catch up with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here and for your time today.